Hey, this is Jennifer and Megan. We are two sisters from South Carolina on a mission to discover more about our British grandmother's life in London by reading, researching, and sharing her love letters she wrote during World War II. If you're looking for an interesting, unique perspective on life, love, and London during World War II, then you have found the right place. We will take you through each letter and bring them to life as we have recently traveled to some of the exact places mentioned in these letters. Think of this as a historic love story come to life. So grab your favorite beverage and blanket and prepare to dive in with us. This is the All My Love, Lucy podcast. Hey, and welcome back to the All My Love, Lucy podcast. This is episode 6, and it's just me, Jennifer, today. I'm flying solo. Megan was unable to be here, and so I'm going to go ahead and get started. First of all, I want to say thank you. We always want to say thank you for all your love and support. And we've been having such a blast with this podcast, and we hope you're enjoying it. We are loving discovering all these wonderful things about our grandparents, and we hope you're enjoying it too. And we also want to mention, if you're a first-time listener, go back and start with episode 1 so that you can make sure not miss any of the information we've already discussed. This is more like a series, so it's better to start there at the beginning. Also, we've got some new equipment, a little bit of new equipment we're trying out, and currently the webcam that we're using has a really bright light, so it's hurting my eyes. If you see me squinting, that's why. And I may not look up at the camera that much because it's like I'm looking at the sun. But anyway, don't forget, also at the end, we have a complete uninterrupted reading of the letter, so stick around for that. And for today's episode, before we get started into the letter, I know most of you saw the breaking news announcement that we connected with one of Jimmie's war buddy's sons. So I'll talk a little bit about that. I somehow ended up down a rabbit trail on the internet, which I've done a lot of lately, and came across the 50th Signal Battalion that Jimmie was a part of. Came across a Facebook group somewhere along the way, one of the Facebook groups. I think there's a couple. And so I did a search within that, looking for certain information, and I came across this guy named Michael Godbout, and he was the son, or he is the son of Joseph Godbout, who was in the Army with Grandpa Jimmie. And so I reached out to him, commented, left a couple of messages, and he reached back, he replied to me, and we started emailing back and forth, and he wrote a book that is just phenomenal. I'm going to show it to you. It's called The Key to Command. And this is about the 50th Signal Battalion that Jimmie was a part of and that his dad was a part of. And it's excellent so far. I just received it this weekend, I think Friday, and so I haven't had an opportunity to read all of it yet. But I've read a lot, and it is excellent. So even if you don't have family that was in the 50th Signal Battalion, or even if you're just a World War II buff and you're interested in that sort of thing, or it's intriguing to you about D-Day, this book is excellent. So I'm not getting any kind of paid promotion to tell you this. It really is good. And the stories that these guys tell are just amazing and worth reading. So I got mine off of Amazon. I'm sure I think Barnes and Noble maybe, but if you just do a quick search on the internet for Key to Command, you can choose the avenue that you want to purchase it at. But this book won I'm going to get this right, a bronze medal from the Military Writers Society of America for History. It's an excellent book, excellent information, and it tells about their journey, the 50th Signal Battalion's journey from Iceland to Germany, which includes England and France. And that's where I'm just living right now, in the England and France area, because that kind of covers the letter period right now. But great book, and such an awesome person to be communicating with. Michael is so friendly and so accommodating. He's just answered all my questions that I've had and sent pictures, and it's just been a really awesome connection. I feel like I've hit the jackpot, and we are just thrilled about this information. So I had to talk about that. Now, we will share more as we go because there's just a lot to talk about, but we'll share more as we go. But basically, in a nutshell, to sum all of what I just said up, we now have a detailed map and a timeline of everything Jimmie was doing there during this time, from the places he was stationed, the actual headquarters and the houses and places that he was stationed in at the time. And oh, it's just I can't say enough how thrilled I am about this and excited I am to share this, and we will continue. I'll pull out pieces and share with you, but I do encourage you, if you're at all interested in the D-Day and the events surrounding that, this book is just so good. You need to get it. He interviewed so many veterans. It's phenomenal. Okay. I think you get it, but okay. So now on to letter number 6. Let's get started here. Letter number 6. This is written June 29th, 1944. Now, if you remember, our last letter was June 28th, 1944. She just wrote him yesterday. So, my darling Jimmie, I have just received your letter and I am so happy. I wrote to you last night, and I think there must be 3 letters on the way to you, as you do not mention having received the rose, and I sent you one after that. So, not much has changed since the last letter that she wrote was actually the night before this one. As we now know, Jimmie was super busy over in France, and at the time of the last letters, he would have been knee deep in the Battle of Cherbourg. And since that battle was actually won on June 27th, just a few days before this, he either would have finally had an opportunity to write to her, or he wrote earlier and it's just now getting to her. So I'm not really sure about that, but because we don't have his letters during this time period, or we haven't found them. So I don't know what his letters were dated. Now, again, specifically, as the book talks about, Jimmie was part of the 50th Signal Battalion and the 7th Army Corps, which was included in one of the first waves of assault landings at Utah Beach. Now, I'm glad I'm going back over this because I have learned that didn't land at Omaha Beach. He actually landed at Utah Beach as part of the Normandy invasion. And thankfully, because of this book that we have, we can now give greater detail about what exactly went on during that time, which I will do later. I just have so much to talk about today. I don't want to bog everyone down with that too much, me talking, especially if I don't have Megan here to talk to and have conversation with. So, but we'll talk more about more greater details now, next time, or in a future episode. But we now, because of this book, we now have access to a really amazing document that lists the 14 men who were on the boat with Jimmie on that day, on June 6th, including the author of the book, his dad. And so they would have worked together. The author of this book, his dad and Grandpa Jimmie, would have worked together on that incredible mission on D-Day. So that's just a really cool story, y'all. I can't even explain how excited I am and how that just, I mean, I'll be real honestly, I cried. Like, when talking to this guy, I cried. In the emails he was sending and pictures he sent, and then this book, I've cried a lot. So just so y'all know, I'm excited, but I'm also so emotional. It's just an emotional journey. But Utah Beach, correction, it wasn't Omaha, it's Utah Beach, was the westernmost of the D-Day beaches. And if you look at a map, and I may try to pop a map up in here if I can figure it out. And Utah Beach was the westernmost of the D-Day beaches, and they landed here so they could be within striking distance of Cherbourg, the port city that I keep talking about. And as we read more into this book, we may talk more about the Battle of Cherbourg, because it was a really significant battle for Jimmie to be a part of. And it keeps coming up. And so there's a lot of information in the book about that battle. But for now, I want to focus on Jimmie's medals of honor. He received several, and I think they're awesome and worth talking about. So he received the Good Conduct Medal, the EAMET Campaign Medal with 5 Bronze Service Stars, the American Defense Service Medal, and the well-known, everybody's heard of, the Purple Heart Medal. So first, the Good Conduct Medal. This medal is awarded for soldiers who willingly complied with the demands of the military environment, who were loyal and obedient to his superiors, who faithfully supported the goals of his organization and the Army, and who conducted himself in an exemplary manner as to distinguish himself from fellow soldiers. I love that. I'm so impressed by that. I just I didn't know Grandpa Jim. Neither one of us, Megan didn't either, Stacy didn't either. He passed away before all of us were here, so we can only know him through his history and people talking about him, and so to know that his character was one that would earn the Good Conduct Medal, I love that. I'm impressed by that, and I'm proud to talk about him for to learn about this. So the next one is the EAMET Campaign Medal with 5 Bronze Service Stars. And EAMET stands for European, African, Middle Eastern Campaign. And this is awarded for service with the European, African, Middle Eastern Theater between December 7th, 1941 and November 8th, 1945. And the Bronze Service Stars are awarded for each campaign that the soldier would have been a part of. And so, since Jimmie was part of the campaigns of Normandy, Northern France, Ardennes, Rhineland, and Central Europe, that's 5, he received those 5 Bronze Service Stars. The next one is the American Defense Service Medal. And this medal was from what I've learned on the Army's medal. I can't remember what the name of the website was, but I went on there and tried to figure out what all these medals meant. But this medal was awarded for active duty service between September 8, 1939 and December 7th, 1941. Now, I'm not sure what the details of this time period for Jimmie were, but we will try to find out, and if we do, I'll update about that. And last but definitely not least, the Purple Heart Medal. Known as the medal that no one wants to earn, the Purple Heart is not awarded for things like bravery or behavior, like the Good Conduct, or heroism. It is awarded for sacrifice, and it's widely recognized by most veterans as the national symbol of sacrifice. It is awarded to those, of course, who have been wounded or killed in combat. Now, for Grandpa Jimmie to have this Purple Heart, he had to have been wounded, and we do not know how he was wounded, but we do know he received the medal, and I'm sure there's a story there to uncover at some point. I don't know at this moment, but we're going to definitely try to find out what that was. We are actually going to interview his last living sibling, his sister, our great aunt Julia, soon. So she may have more information on this, and we may have an update sooner than we think. Also, I was talking to another cousin, Lisa, and Lisa is our Grandpa Jimmie's brother Tom's daughter. And I was talking to her, and she was mentioning about that sole survivor directive that I talked about with Saving Private Ryan and all that. Is she said that her grandmother, Jimmie and Tom's mom, had 3 of her sons in the war at one time. And she was saying how if they hadn't come home, if they hadn't made it home, then none of us would be here. And so that was something to think about, that not just Jimmie was off at war, but also 2 of his brothers. So back to the letter. Lucy goes on to say, "Darling, I'm going to head to the post office to try and post your ring, as the local one will be closed by now. I'm so glad you want it, and I do hope you like it. It was the very best I could get. I hope you like the inscription. I shall never forget May 4th and the little shop in Newbine Street where you got mine." Now, I don't know what the inscription was, but I'm assuming here that it had something to do, I guess the date maybe. because she says that right there. But like I said, I think he was buried with it, so I've never seen it. But we do have the registered letter envelope where she sent the ring. And so I'll show you this if you're watching on video. So it's a registered letter there. So it's a lot different. It's a lot thicker than the normal envelopes. And I'm sure there were other stipulations, but it's a lot thicker and looks a lot different than before. Oh, one more thing before I move forward from Jimmie's war military duties. These are his badges here, a couple of badges that we have. I'm sure he had more, but these are the ones we have. This is for the U.S. Army 7th Corps. That's what tells us that he was part of that. And then, of course, we've got one of his dog tags here. And if I remember correctly about this one, this is his gold bars. And I think each one of these is 6 months of service overseas, I think is what I read. So that would have been 3 years. So that sounds about right on that. But I wanted to show those real quick while I had that on my mind before I forget. Okay, so we have that registered envelope that she sent Jimmie his ring in. And we also have found, I know last time we talked about this, we weren't really sure about the name of the jewelry shop where she bought his ring. Here's his box. The box where his ring, the box that his ring was in. And so we could not make out what this, the name on that inscription was on that box or whatever it is. But after lots and lots of digging and research, I finally found it. And it was called Saki and Lawrence, the name of the jewelry shop. And it was a prominent jeweler in London, in the UK. There were, I think there were several of them, but this one in particular that she went to was in Piccadilly. And they were known for their exquisite jewelry and were considered one of the largest jewelers in London. And I was able to find a picture of it. So again, I'm going to try to pop that up at some point. And it was located, one of the locations was across the street from Woolworths. So if you're familiar with that. And while we're talking about their engagement a little bit, I also want to go back to the last episode and talk about the bottom drawer. I don't know if you remember me mentioning that or us reading that, but the bottom drawer, I said I didn't know what she's talking about. Well, after the episode, after a day or so after, my mom, Phyllis, our mom Phyllis, asked me about it. And after we dug a little bit, we didn't have to go far. We discovered that it's actually a common phrase that meant something like a hope chest, like we would think of a hope chest. And then I received another message from our cousin Mary, who lives in Australia, and she said the same exact thing. So when a couple was engaged, the woman would collect things such as sheets, linens, cups, all the things that they may need for their home, and she would put them in her bottom drawer. So going back to Lucy's letter last time, she was working extra and making that extra money she was making at her new job. She was going to save for the things for her bottom drawer. Also, something Mary, our cousin Mary, told me was that her mom used to talk about the doodlebug bombs and how she and her mom and Mary's grandmother was Grandma Lucy's brother Alfred's wife. So that's how we're connected. And we have a really cool story about that. We'll talk about later. But so she told her about how they would hide under the kitchen table and told about how scary it was when the engines would stop and the doodlebugs would drop. So I thought that was interesting that our cousin Mary had that communication with her mom about the doodlebugs. So it wasn't that too long ago when you think about it. And one more thing before I forget, when I went back and listened to the episode from last time, I was like, I need to talk about that. I need to mention that. So one more thing about something I mentioned last time. If you remember me talking about shorthand, that's what Lucy did. And then you remember me saying something about our older sister, Stacy. Well, I talked to Stacy and her friend, whose name is also Jennifer, and I talked to both of them. Actually, Jennifer messaged me first, and they actually took a class, a shorthand class in school. And so this would have been in the early early 90s, late 80s, I don't know, somewhere around there. And so they offered that class in school, and both of them took that together, and uh, they both passed it. So I was highly impressed. I told Jennifer, I said, I will tell you, if I pass the shorthand class, because it looks like it would just be so difficult to learn, if I pass the shorthand class, I would tell everybody, like, I would introduce myself. I would say, hey, nice to meet you. I'm Jennifer and I know shorthand. I mean, that's just to me is so impressive to know or to even pass a class that where you learn shorthand, because that just seems so difficult to me. It seems so hard. So I'm going down a rabbit trail again, but back to the letter. So Lucy goes back and says, or goes on to say, darling, I don't go dancing anymore because I love you too much and only want to dance with you. And while this is so sweet that she's saying this makes me sad for her. I wish Megan was here so I could talk to her, so we could have a conversation about this, because this makes me so sad for her. I realize that going dancing, she would have had to probably dance with another man or other men. But it makes me sad that she was alone and all that was going on at the time. It was, she was afraid a lot and she was alone and wasn't able to enjoy the things that she used to, because going back through Grandma Lucy's things and her letters and pictures, she loved life. She was always with her friends and going on trips and going out to the theater and going dancing and and she was just full of life. And so this makes me really sad that she says she doesn't go out dancing anymore. So speaking of dancing, another thing from last episode that I want to bring up, I briefly mentioned about the Lambeth song that my grandmother taught me on the piano, and uh, let's see, it's called the Lambeth Walk. Okay, so whenever after the episode, our other cousin Ray, who is Mary that I just mentioned, is her brother, and I think he's in the UK. He commented on a post about this song, The Lambeth Walk, and told me that it's actually from a musical. And so I was like, oh, that's awesome. Now, I was probably either too young or too young to really care about that type of thing, but I never knew that. And I never even thought about the song much until we were in London and saw the Lambeth Walk. I posted that little video. But so I went and dug out my piano book. And so here it is, and it's from the musical Me and My Girl. It's a glare on that. As you can see, that light is so bright. And it's from that musical there. And so I sat down on the piano and tried to play it. Now, if you listen to another post that I posted with a guy playing it on the piano, I didn't play it near fast enough when I played on the piano, so or nowhere near like he did. So back to the letter. She goes on to say, sweetheart, I will write you again on Sunday. We don't get much rest here, either by day or by night. So I often feel tired, but don't worry because I take great care of myself for you. I have got so much to live for now, so I don't take any risks. With all my love, from your Lucy, in great haste. So, as we now know, Lucy is living through a terrible bombing campaign in London. And as she says here, she's not sleeping, she's tired a lot. But I love how she says she has so much to live for now. And that is evident here in these letters. So, as always, we want to say thank you for hanging out with us and spending time with, well, me, not us, because Megan's not here. But thank you for spending time listening to this episode. And don't miss any of our upcoming episodes, as we, like you see, we are discovering more and more about Jimmie and Lucy's lives and their love story during this time. And also, kind of a teaser for next time, we have another awesome discovery and connection we've made about Lucy's friend, Marion. I don't know if you remember maybe the first episode when we were talking about Muriel, her friend Muriel, and how I was pen pal with Muriel. I was also a pen pal with Marion, who's another friend of Lucy's. And we have a really cool story and a discovery about her, a recent discovery. So don't miss the next episode. And if you don't want to miss the episodes, make sure you subscribe to our channels on our YouTube or Podbean, or make sure you're following on our Facebook page, because if you follow, then you'll get the notification that we posted something. Hit those like buttons. Those help us, and leave us comments and reviews. That always helps. And also, a new thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be answering emails. So I'm going to give our email address. If you'd like to email us with a question or a comment or anything like that, you can definitely post it on our Facebook. But if you prefer email, our email is allmylovelucy@gmail.com. Should be easy to remember. So we'd love to hear from you in any capacity on Facebook or Podbean, or through email or YouTube. So feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. And again, thank you so much for sticking around. As promised, I know I've talked a lot today and I'm by myself, so I tend to ramble a little bit, especially if I don't have Megan here to kind of hone me in. But as promised, I'm gonna end this with an uninterrupted reading of this letter. So until next time, enjoy. June 29th, 1944. My darling Jimmie, I have just received your letter and I am so happy. I wrote to you last night, and I think there must be 3 letters on the way to you, as you do not mention having received the rose, and I sent you one after that. Darling, I'm going to head to the post office to try and post your ring, as the local one will be closed by now. I am so glad you want it, and I do hope you will like it. It was the very best I could get. I hope you like the inscription. I shall never forget May 4th and the little shop in New Bond Street where you got mine. Darling, I don't go dancing anymore because I love you too much and only want to dance with you. Sweetheart, I will write you again on Sunday. We don't get much rest here, either by day or by night, so I often feel tired. But don't worry, because I take great care of myself for you. I have got so much to live for now, so I don't take any risks. With all my love, from your Lucy, in great haste. If you are hearing this message, you've listened to the entire episode, and for that, we want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We truly hope you enjoyed this episode, and we hope you'll return for the next episode of the All My Love Lucy podcast.